Hi, in the previous video, we have seen how to create the lightings for this model. And also now in this video, we are going to export the shadow separate and the light separate. So first of all, now if you see the previous render, so here you can see we have very light shadows. And also now in the environment, if you see the trees, the directions of the shadows are going into this direction here. Now in order to look natural, what the thing is, the shadows of this vehicle also has to be in this side here. But what the thing is, now when we render by taking this like sky dome light, the shadows are coming onto the ground, but we need to specify the directions of the shadow here. So in order to do that, we have to take a directional light here so that we can specify the directions of the shadow using the directional light here. So in order to take the directional light, we have to go to like create lights, and in lights we can see there is an option like directional light here. So whenever we take the directional light, you can see this is a directional light here. So once I will go to the perspective view. So now what the thing is, as we want the shadow should fall onto this side. So now you can see the directional light are facing towards this direction. That means whenever we render, the shadows will come onto this side here. So now what the thing is, we need to rotate this directional light so that we can change the directions of the shadows towards this direction. So now we can rotate this towards the direction, and we can move, and now we can scale. So the scale doesn't matter, and scale and the position doesn't matter. So wherever you place the direction, like still you will get the shadows for the all objects here. So now just I will place here. Now we'll go to the camera. First of all, before rendering, after placing the directional light, you can see the shadows. It is on the ground here. So and also we can save this image like temporarily so that we can see the before and after the directional light. So now if you go to the file and keep this in the render view, now again I will render this. Now you can see after placing the directional light, you can see it has been created the shadow towards this direction here. So if you see the previous render, if you go to like here, see before directional light, it was in this way, and after directional light, you can see now it has been created the shadows to the particular direction. So according to the requirement, we can change the rotations of this directional light so that the shadow will fall onto the direction. And now you can see here the shadow edges are very harder. No problem. Now we can adjust this in like Nuke. As I said, we will export the shadow separate and the light separate here. Now we'll see how to export the shadow separate and the model separate here. So in order to do that, first we need to go to the render setup here. So here top you can see there is an option render setup, or else suppose if you go to the Windows rendering, like render setup here. So now if you click on this render setup, now you can see it has been opened one window. So what is the use of this render setup is, here we can create the layers what it has to render. So what the thing is, here we will create the two layers. So one layer is for rendering the shadow, one layer is for rendering only the geometry here. So now in order to do that, first we need to click on this. So there is an option like add layer here. So click on this. So here, let's say you name it like only geo. And now after creating the layer, now we have to right click on this, and there is an option create collection. So what is this is, we need to specify what object it has to render here. So in order to do that, we have to right click and click on create collection. Now it has been created. So you can give name like geo or something. So now what the thing is here, when you select this collection, here we have to drag what it has to render. So for time being, what we want is, we want to render the vehicle with the help of lights also. So now what we need to do is, we have to drag the sky dome light, and we have to drag the model here. So where is the model? And if you like select this model, so see, now we have selected the model, and also we need to select the directional light. I think at present we don't no need of selecting the directional light, because the directional light we have used only for the shadows. So now at present we need only the sky dome light, and we need to select the model. Now what we need to do is, we have to middle mouse click and drag onto here. So what the thing is, now see, we have dragged only light and the model here. Now you see, if you enable this thing, everything has been disabled here. Now if you go and click on this render, so now you can see it has been rendered only the model here, but not the shadows. And the background, laterally in the final output, we can remove the background. So we can render only the model and only the shadow without the background. Because if you render the background again, it will be very hard for us to composite in Nuke. So we cannot composite in Nuke here. So that's why what the thing is, we need to export only the vehicle and the shadow separate. So in the final step, I will show how to remove the background also. So for time being, now we have created the layer and we have rendered only the vehicle here. Now what the thing is, we have to create another layer so that we can render only the shadow. So in order to do that, we can go to the render setup here. Now again, click on this layer. So we can create the new layer, and let's say we will type it as only shadow or something. And in this also, now we need to right click and click on create collection. So shadow. So now what the thing is, in this still we need to drag all the objects here first of all. So we need to drag the sky dome, we need to drag the vehicle, we need to drag the directional light, and also we need to drag the plane too. Okay, because without plane we cannot create the shadows here. So we need to drag the directional light, plane, sky dome, and the vehicle. And now we need to middle mouse click and drag here. Okay, now you see, if you enable this again, we got the plane and everything. But still you see, if you render now, still you can see we got the model and the shadow too. But what the thing is, actually we want only the shadow has to be rendered here. So in order to do that, we have to go to the setup here. Now what the thing is, here on this collection, which has been created on shadow layer, what the thing is, we need to right click and there is an option called create material override. So now what is the use of this material override is, we have to specify the material name which has been given to the plane here. So what the thing is, see, now whenever you select this plane, and if you go to the attribute editor, you can see in the last we have given the AI shadow matte here. So now exactly we have to copy the name of this material and we have to paste here. So whatever the name you give, either if you give like shadow, or if you give ground shadow something, whatever the name you are given to this material, we have to copy and we have to paste here, means like while selecting the material override. So now what it will do is, it will render only the shadow by using this shadow matte material, and the remaining everything will be not rendered. So see, now whenever I enable this layer, see, everything has been grayed out. So now when we render, so see here, now it has been rendered only the shadow but not the geometry. So by using this technique, we can render the shadow separate and the geometry separate. So if you go to the render setup, so now if you enable this layer, now it will render only the geometry. Now if you render this layer, then it will render only the shadow here. So in this way, we have to export this shadow separate and the geometry separate, so that we can both composite in the Nuke and we can make some color corrections for individual layers here. So that we will see in the next video. That means like how to export shadow separate and how to export the geometry separate. See you in the next video.